Welcome to People Places Planet Pod, the official podcast of the Environmental Law Institute, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization working to ensure a healthy environment, prosperous economies, and vibrant communities founded on the rule of law.
Technology is radically reshaping how things are powered, made, and moved. It's allowing us to observe environmental conditions in real time and to adjust how we produce goods and services to reduce waste and pollution. Drones, artificial intelligence, and advanced sensor networks are changing the way pollution and our natural resources are monitored and assessed. Technology is not a panacea, but it is an instrument of rapid change, both in the world we live in and in the world of environmental law and protection. At ELI's inaugural GreenTech conference held in Seattle, Washington, policymakers, lawmakers, technologists, NGOs, and leaders from some of the world's most innovative companies joined ELI to explore environmental protection in an era of transformative technological change. My name is Dominic Shigitano, and I'm a research associate here at ELI. With us today are Kasantha Moodley, Manager of Innovation and Governments here at the Environmental Law Institute, as well as ELI President Scott Fulton, both of whom played an integral role in orchestrating the inaugural GreenTech conference. Hi, Kasantha and Scott. Thank you both so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Dominic. We're so glad to be here to spread the news about GreenTech.
Greetings, Dominic.
So for those who don't already know, what is GreenTech?
So I see it as technology that is designed to mitigate its environmental and social impacts, but it's also technology that is applied to addressing a specific environmental challenge. Some of these technologies include bioengineering to develop biofuels and bioplastics, while there's also artificial intelligence to monitor and predict air emissions.
Yeah, for me, when we say green tech, it has a particularized meaning in the ELI context. We're an organization that is ultimately focused on building effective governance and rule of law in the environmental space. So the key questions in the technology arena are how will technology transform regulated behavior, as that will necessarily influence the systems that are intended to oversee that behavior, but also how will technology change our ability to understand and assess environmental impacts and environmental conditions, which can in turn drive behaviors in interesting ways. And so that's really what we're looking at in particular, I think, in the green tech context. We don't see this as a kind of a general exploration of technology. It's really more about how technology may be transformative in the environmental protection systems of the future.
Great. And so now that we kind of have an idea of how green tech relates to ELI's work, I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about how the idea came about. What prompted you both to sort of conceptualize this conference and carry it out?
Okay. Thank you, Dominic. There probably are a few formative stages for this. For me personally, this kind of set up before I came to ELI to serve as the Institute's president in 2015. When I got involved in some work that the World Justice Project was doing, looking at the role of technology as a source of assistance in failed state scenarios. In other words, when government is not up to the task of producing environmental protection, how can technology serve a role in bridging that and bringing about change, and in particular, sensing technology and information and communication technology. So I had this thought when I came to ELI that an institute like this one, focused as it is on environmental governance, ought to be looking at this space. One of the things that I was able to do fairly early in the going was bring Dave Rajewski over from the World Woodrow Wilson Center, and to help me figure out what this technology law governance interface. And Dave and I produced a paper back in 2018 called A New Environmentalism, the Need for a Total Strategy for Environmental Protection. And in that paper, we observed that the future of environmental governance looked to be moving away from an exclusively government-centric model towards a multifaceted system of governance that relied as heavily on private sector governance and leadership and on citizen-based governance and leadership as it would on government programming, and that technology promised to be an animating feature in all of those governance systems going forward. So we put this paper out. It attracted some interest and energy, including among the members of the board of directors for the Environmental Law Institute. And our board includes a fair number of representatives of tech companies, but also companies that are very much tech reliant and tech sophisticated. And our board got interested in this and thought that the Institute could contribute in a meaningful way to shining a light on this important intersection. The next stop in the process, I guess, was a gathering at the margins of the annual meeting of the American College of Environmental Lawyers in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, in the fall of 2018. Several of our board members and I are members of the college. We found ourselves sharing some ideas over a bottle of whiskey as we were looking out over Jackson Hole. And really the idea of this conference was born there, hopefully inspired more by the importance of the issue than the spirits. But we were off and running at that point, and many thanks to Brad Martin of Martin Law in Seattle and Rob Kirsch, the vice chair of the ELI board, formerly of the Wilmer law firm, for their leadership and engagement really from the get-go. Also a very important contribution from Katie Thompson of Amazon. We settled on Seattle as a delivery venue for the conference. We set about the business of designing and developing the conference pretty much from whole cloth because this was something brand new. And fortunately, it turned out to be a wonderful success.
Thank you, Scott, for providing some context on the conference. For those who weren't able to be in attendance, I was hoping you both could talk a little bit about some of the panels that were at GreenTech this past year. I thought some of them were really fascinating. So there was one session on optimizing the energy system, another that explored technology as a service, one on the future of food production in a technocentric world. What were some kind of interesting points that came out of these conversations?
We had a series of really interesting panels that were designed around sectors for the most part. So we had a making, moving, and measuring panel, which was principally focused on the manufacturing sector, but also looked at some of the transportation issues relating to manufacture, but also considered the revolution in sensing technology that's underway that promises to produce information all the way from space through drone technology to ground level technology, and be part of the environmental big data boom that we're all anticipating and expecting. There was a panel on energy that, not surprisingly, was by and large focused on the innovations and forward movement and momentum in the renewable energy space. We had a panel on food, which was very interesting, that included consideration of or reconsideration of our basic crop production approaches, and raised the question whether we should be growing perennial crops instead of annual crops, which have all sorts of dividends in terms of avoiding tilling and non-point source pollution, but also have climate benefits associated with them. So that was quite interesting as well. We had a circular economy segment that looked generally at the movement and the direction of circularity on a cross-sectoral basis, and the promise that holds. We had an e-services panel that, among other things, considered where we're going with artificial intelligence and cloud computing, and the energy and environmental implications of that evolution and approach. This is just a smattering of some of the things that were discussed. Some takeaways for me were the apparent and sort of palpable power of the sustainability idea or ideal in driving away in some ways from the consumption model, that to build products in a way that are durable, and then to build the business model around ensuring that durability and servicing the equipment so that it can be reused over and over again, instead of a business model based on replacement of the equipment and disposal of the predecessor equipment. So, the extent to which this is influencing behavior in the business sector, the sustainability ideal, was on full display at this conference, and stimulating and energizing to hear. But it also brought attention to some important areas of challenge, including the fact that even though the technology now exists for rapid build out of renewables, the incentive structures aren't all in place to encourage that to happen. So the pacing is off from what it could be with a different set of incentives. Similarly, as much promise as artificial intelligence holds for helping us solve tomorrow's problems, it does not come entirely free either. The cloud computing resources associated with artificial intelligence will be significant. They'll be energy consumptive, and part of the path forward needs to be in anticipation of that.
We've come to realize the importance of bringing together this diverse group of stakeholders. And the reason why is because the recurring kind of theme that came out of these sessions was that the innovation exists, but to solve some of these really big, complex challenges, we still need to overcome the struggles that are slowing or preventing the scaling and or deployment of these technologies. And some of the kind of barriers that were raised were social acceptance, a dated legal or policy framework, as well as the economic considerations, and the unit price of the unit cost rather of these technologies. The urgency is there, but a collective effort involving technologists, lawyers, investors, and others is really key to moving this forward. And we really just hope that GreenTech can serve as a platform to advance such an effort.
So sounds to me like you were able to cover a pretty impressive range of topics at this first inaugural conference. I know it might be a little early to ask this question, but what are both of you thinking about for GreenTech 2020?
Well, Dominic, GreenTech 2020, we've already earmarked a date, so it will happen between the 14th and 16th of September. And will also be held in Seattle. So please mark your calendars, everyone.
I'm also hoping that maybe we'll have a panel that looks at innovative efforts that are underway to connect the dots in this space. There are some examples, really interesting examples of companies and efforts underway to take environmental big data and harness it in the direction of environmental behavioral change, whether that is feeding information to government as a way to encourage government intervention, or whether that is feeding information to private sector interests who have a stake in the environmental performance game. So, for example, financial managers, investors, if that community is equipped with data analytics that are suggestive of performance issues in the environmental space, then those financial managers may be a source of encouragement or inducement to produce change.
Thank you, Scott. I think conversations like those happening at GreenTech 2019 and in the future GreenTech 2020 are only going to be more important as technology's role in environmental protection sort of continues to change and grow. So where might our listeners go to learn more about GreenTech?
Sure. So listeners can visit greentechconference.org for more information. And we also have a mailing list that listeners can provide their ideas and or thoughts on GreenTech 2020. Listeners can provide this via an email address that's greentech@eli.org. We would love to hear from everyone. The other thing that I wanted to mention is sponsorships. So there is an opportunity for sponsorships. If anyone is interested, they can visit our website, click on the sponsorship link, and our sponsorship benefits are available on that site. If there are any questions on sponsorships, folks are also welcome to email me. That is, again, you can use the greentech@eli.org emailing address. Thank you.
Thank you both for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you for tuning in to People, Places, Planet Pod, brought to you by the Environmental Law Institute. We would like to hear from you, so please send us your questions, comments, and ideas to podcast@eli.org. And if you're interested in learning more about our work, attending one of our events, reading our publications, or becoming a member, please visit our website at www.eli.org.